I'm going to give you my top tips and tricks as a former binge eater to get rid of binge eating behavior for good. I don't think there's anything in this world at this point that could get me to binge eat, which is absolutely phenomenal. And 10 years ago, I would have said, if you would have proposed that this would be my life, that this is absolutely impossible. But it is possible for me, and it is also possible for you. My name is Sheena, and I'm a registered dietitian specializing in the care of persons with eating disorders. Also, someone that has recovered from binge eating. Interested in learning more about eating disorder recovery, definitely click that subscribe button as I drop new episodes every Wednesday that day. So we're going to make this as simple as possible because recovering from binge eating is one of the longest processes. And the reason why is the recovery process is exactly the thing that we're trying to avoid when it comes to how we're healing from that binge eating, which honestly, for most of us, is the result of restrictive eating. We're going to get into that more, and that is also going to be one of the solutions that we utilize in order to heal from this binge eating. Okay, so here are some very unconventional tips and tricks that I've learned who has personally suffered from binge eating disorder. Eating disorder behavior that I felt that I had the very least control is actually happening when we are binge eating is we are trying to gain some of control around food. I know that sounds weird because binge eating, when you are a person that has experienced binge eating, it feels like we are completely out of control with food. Like we just get that food in front of us, absolutely nonstop. We can't control ourselves, we can't stop eating, etc. But what is actually happening is we are trying to calculate everything out and every other aspect of our food. So when it comes time to actually allowing ourselves access to our food, we will feel completely out of control. So how do we stop that? There is really only one way, and that is to transition from this element of scarcity to this element of abundance. So, everything that we're going to talk about today is how to get ourselves out of scarcity mindset and put ourselves into the mindset of abundance. So, my first unconventional tip to stop binge eating well forever is give all foods the same respect. I'm serious. Practice what is called food neutrality. So I kind of like to think of this as if we have several children, right? Our children are all going to have different skills, talents, attributes that make them special and unique and contribute different things to the family infrastructure. Honestly, this is a weird way to parallel this, but it is the same with food. Every food offers a different nutritional profile and composition that the body needs to function day in and day out. And while some foods may be more abundant in certain nutrients than other foods, that doesn't negate the respect that we should have for all foods when it comes to nourishing our body and also our minds. So many foods are not only going to nourish the body, which all foods do, because honestly, that is the very definition of what makes it a food and digestible is that it offers some type of nutritional benefit to the body. So all food has nutritional value, but they all have different nutritional values. So we need to give all foods the same respect because if we don't give all these foods the same respect, that actually creates the scarcity mindset. Another thing with the giving all foods the same respect is when foods comes into the home, how are we treating that food? For example, when we have brownies on the counter, are we treating those brownies with the same respect as we would, say, the carrots in the fridge or the flour in the pantry? Are we putting it into a plastic bag, putting it in the pantry as an option for our family to choose? Or are we simply leaving that food on the counter, pretending that it doesn't exist and hoping it disappears as fast as possible? Unfortunately, most of us are doing the later. We're leaving that food on the counter and we're just hoping that it goes away so we don't have to think about that food anymore. And that unfortunately, again, creates that scarcity mindset in us. We want the food gone because we don't want to have to deal with the emotional and physical barriers of thinking about consuming that food. Now, while this might seem logical, like, hey, I might have less of the food, it actually does exactly the opposite. Because when we leave that food without a home on our counter, it's the first thing that we're thinking about when we walk into the kitchen. it often might become kind of a plague in our mind for the day because we know that we quote unquote shouldn't be having that food. Again, scarcity mindset. And we want to get that food out of the home as soon as possible because that's an off limits food. And so, therefore, instead of it becoming a food that we can enjoy throughout the day as part of our normal meal and snack structure, it now becomes the food to get rid of and the food that is all consuming in our mind, which unfortunately helps lead us to binge eating. So when we are thinking about all foods and snacks that come into the home, them in to begin with so that they don't become a scarce food and they're just as abundant as other food items in our home, such as frozen goods or broccoli, cauliflower, etc. And we don't really think much about these foods because they're just another item in the pantry. That creates more of the abundance mindset and erases some of that scarcity mindset. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk about is practicing wasting food. This is something that I chat about with my clients a lot. If we're going to stop binge eating, we need to learn to waste food. Now, I know there are starving children in Africa. Food is expensive. Not everyone has this abundance, Sheena, of food. Yes, I get it, but hear me out. Food put into your body that you do not physically or emotionally desire is still wasted food. It doesn't matter if it goes into your body or sits on the plate, it is food that you don't need. So, therefore, we are simply teaching our body that its cues that it is giving us are not important because we have all these other parameters around us that are dictating how much we should and shouldn't have, which actually has nothing to do with the amount of food that we need. Wasted in the body is just the same as food wasted in the trash can. Number two, no matter how much food we put into our body or how much food we waste that is on the plate, it is going to do absolutely nothing to influence the corrupt political infrastructure, which leads to hunger and starvation around the world. We actually, unfortunately, just do not have the capacity to feed those in global hunger just because we do or do not eat what is on our plate. Unfortunately, it just disrupts our normal hunger and fullness cues and puts a guilt trip on us for something that we have absolutely no influence over. Component of this is that when we practice wasting food, we are actually reminding our body that we are in charge of the food that we put into it. It gives us that abundance mindset. I can eat the food that I desire and I cannot eat the food that I don't desire. While that sounds incredibly simple, it actually helps us regain a lot of that control that we have around food because we are not only creating the abundance mindset of I have enough and I can choose to put enough into my body, but we are also saying I can also choose to not put food into my body, which does not make me feel good. The next tip I like to always extend is to plan a binge. Now, if you're feeling completely out of control with binge eating, especially at a particular time of the day or on particular days, it can be really helpful to actually just plan a binge into your routine. This helps to create that abundance mindset. Every night at 6 I'm going to plan a binge. I'm going to allow myself to eat whatever I want in whatever quantity I want, and this helps to erase that scarcity and those rules that we might have around food. And with more practice, we might begin to notice that we desire less and less because we already know that that permission is coming. If we want to stop binge eating, we must binge. And the reason why is that all binge eating, again, comes from food scarcity. So we must create that abundance somewhere, even if it is within the very thing that we're trying to avoid, which is binge eating and feeling out of control with food. If we're giving ourselves permission for that food, we no longer need to feel out of control. So last thing that I encourage individuals to try as they try to reduce their binge eating is to practice eating family style. What is family style? Think of going to an Asian restaurant where they're putting towers of food onto the table, or shared dishes where everyone is expected to grab something from a center plate and put it onto their table. Order more than you think that you need. This again creates that abundance mindset. You can either leave the food there at the end and also kind of create taking charge over that food if you feel like this is financially feasible for your family, or you can take those leftovers home. But what this does is it creates that abundance mindset. It also gets rid of what I like to call food assignments. And this is where, when we're creating a very specific portion of food for, say, dinner meals for a family, we tend to, as binge eaters, assign a certain portion to each member of the family. If that person doesn't eat their assigned portion, we, as someone who is experiencing binge eating, might feel extremely frustrated and also feel extreme guilt or shame if we do or do not consume that food. So, eating family style, where there is no way to predict what another person might want to consume and we are overabundant to begin with, really eliminates that food scarcity, that food assigning, and can help you to recover from that binge eating. I hope that this information was helpful for you. By the way, definitely check out my website at peaceofnutrition.com. If you want to learn more about eating disorders, this is the only place on the internet where I'm able to provide you with unfiltered, raw information about eating disorder recovery, and is much less censored than you might see on YouTube or other social platforms. So definitely check out my website, and you can also book an appointment with me there as well. I hope that this information was helpful for you. If so, please consider liking, subscribing, or sharing with a friend.